Poor girl makes dress out of trash bags, and the millionaire, CEO, can't take his eyes off her. Before we begin, let us know in the comments which country you're watching from. And once the story ends, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. She hadn't eaten in 3 days, but with nothing but garbage bags and a bent wire, she stitched a dress so beautiful. It stopped a billionaire CEO in his tracks. They mocked her, laughed at her, called it trash. Until the truth came out, she wasn't just a homeless woman sewing in the street. She was the missing fashion legend who vanished 3 years ago. And what happened next would turn the fashion world and his heart upside down. The needle was nothing more than a bent wire. The fabric, torn plastic bags, and a ribbon she found near a trash can. But in Emma Carter's hands, it became something else. She sat on the edge of the fountain, surrounded by scraps, candy wrappers, packaging, a frayed shoelace. People walked past like they didn't see her, or maybe they chose not to. But she kept sewing, not for money, not for attention. She was sewing because it was the only thing that still made her feel alive. Emma hadn't eaten in 3 days. Her stomach ached, her lips were cracked, and the cold seeped into her bones. But none of that mattered, not when her fingers were moving, not when she was creating. She folded 2 blue plastic bags together, sliced a slit with a razor blade, and began stitching with rhythm like muscle memory from a life she no longer had. Each cut, each fold, told a story no one had ever asked to hear. Across the street, a black luxury car slowed to a stop. Inside sat Raphael Whitmore, billionaire CEO of Montgomery Fashion. The man known for being ruthless in boardrooms and invisible at galas. He'd just left a meeting that felt like another performance. Empty applause, plastic smiles. But out of the corner of his eye, he saw her, a woman on the concrete, stitching trash like it was silk. He didn't know why he got out of the car, didn't know why he crossed the street. Only that, he couldn't look away. She didn't notice him at first, not until he got close enough to cast a shadow over her work. Her hands didn't pause, but her voice was calm, almost amused. "Did you lose something?" Raphael blinked, caught off guard. "No, just watching." She glanced up, eyes sharp but tired. Brown irises ringed with gold, eyes that had seen things. People usually stare, but they don't stop. "Most people don't turn trash into dresses," he said softly. Emma gave a half smile, still stitching. "It's just something to keep my hands moving, to stay sane." "Can I ask what you're making?" "A dress," she said. "These blue bags have a better grip. The green ones tear too easy. It's all about the contrast." She held it up, and for a second, he forgot he was standing in a dirty park, forgot he was a CEO, because in her hands, garbage had become art. "It's stunning," he murmured. Emma gave a dry chuckle that all a man in a suit has to say. "No," Raphael replied, voice quieter now. "It's the most original thing I've seen in years." There was a pause. The wind rustled wrappers near her feet. Somewhere, a saxophone played faintly down the block. "You studied fashion?" he asked. Emma looked down, then back at him. "I studied a lot of things, but the street teaches you faster." That answer hit him deeper than it should have. Raphael reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a card. "Tomorrow night, Montgomery Fashion is hosting a showcase for new designers. I want you to come. Bring this dress." Emma stared at the card like it belonged to another world. "Let me guess," she said, biting her lip. "Another rich guy, trying to feel good by helping the poor girl." "No, I run a fashion company that's forgotten what real creativity looks like. And I just found it here." Her eyes studied his. For the first time in a long time, she saw someone who didn't look afraid of her. Or sorry, just honest. "If I show up, will they even let me in?" "I..." I'll be at the door," he promised. Nothing else matters, just the dress. She held the card for a long moment. "All right, but if this turns out to be a joke, I'm good with a needle, and I know where to aim." Raphael smiled, noted, "See you tomorrow, Emma." "See you, Mr. Whitmore. Or should I call you sponsor of creative lunatics? I prefer discoverer of unlikely talent." That night, she folded the trash bag dress gently, wrapped it in a grocery sack, and placed it beside her. She sat back down on the stone bench, looked up at the stars through the skeletal trees. "A talent exhibit. Huh," she whispered. "If only they knew. Talent's the only thing I never lost." Chapter 1. The Needle and the Suit. The gallery looked like a palace made of glass and gold. Emma Carter stood in front of its towering doors, clutching the recycled grocery bag against her chest. Inside it was the dress, her only ticket into this world of silk and crystal. Her boots were falling apart. Her shirt had a hole under the sleeve. Her hair was tied back with a rubber band she'd found in a gutter. But she walked in anyway. The doorman didn't hide his suspicion. He looked her up and down like she'd taken a wrong turn at reality. "Ma'am, are you sure you're in the right place?" Emma pulled out the card, Raphael Whitmore's card. His name was printed in elegant silver ink that seemed to shimmer under the chandelier's light. The doorman raised an eyebrow, then called over someone. They checked a list, whispered, nodded, and finally stepped aside. "Right this way." She took one step in, and the entire room shifted. Conversations faltered. Glasses paused mid-sip. People turned, and for a breathless second, it was like the entire elite of New York had stopped breathing. Emma didn't flinch. Her heart pounded, but her spine stayed straight. She walked past women, draped in diamonds, and men wrapped in $1,000 suits. She smelled Chanel perfume and disdain, saw judgment in eyes hidden behind designer frames. "Oh my God! What is that smell? Did someone let in the help? Is this charity night?" Emma kept walking. At the far end of the exhibit floor, she found him, Raphael, already crossing the room to meet her. He looked relieved, maybe even proud. "Emma," he said softly, "you came." "A promise is a promise," she replied, chin raised. He led her to a reserved section for designers. Mannequins stood like silent witnesses. Gowns already displayed on them sparkled under the soft event lights. Silk, feathers, crystals. Emma reached into her bag and unwrapped her creation. It looked like nothing else in the room. She carefully slid it onto the mannequin and stepped back. The light hit it, and suddenly the plastic shimmered. The dress was a gradient of soft blues and silvers, layered and sculpted with unexpected elegance. It flowed, despite its stiffness. It whispered, even though it was made from things meant to be silent. For a moment, just a heartbeat, there was silence. Then came the laughter. "Are you seeing this? Is that actual trash? What is this? Some post-apocalyptic joke? It's insulting to everyone who worked hard to be here." Emma stood beside her mannequin like a soldier guarding a grave. She didn't respond, didn't blink. Her fingers clenched at her sides, but she didn't move. They didn't know that dress had cost her blood. They didn't know it had kept her sane on nights when the cold could have stolen her life. Raphael stood at a distance, watching. His jaw was tight, but he didn't interfere. Not yet. The host of the evening stepped onto the small stage, well-dressed, silver-haired, voice like velvet. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "we now begin the official judging." 5 judges took their places: an editor-in-chief, a world-renowned designer, an art critic, a fashion collector, and Raphael. Each creation was presented one by one. Polite applause for familiar names, measured nods for expensive gowns. Technical terms flew like confetti bias cut. Architectural seam, raw edge minimalism, Then came Emma, the host called Entry 7. The room quieted. The judges stood in front of her dress. Most couldn't hide their reactions. The editor wrinkled her nose. Sustainable doesn't mean literal trash. The designer sneered. Interesting technique. Shame about the medium. The critic sighed. Social message, perhaps. But context is everything. The collector snorted. I wouldn't spend a dime. Then Raphael stood. With all due respect, he said calmly, You're not seeing it. They all turned to him. Forget the material. Look at the lines, the color gradient, the balance, the proportions. This isn't fashion from fabric. It's fashion from nothing. That is innovation. There was tension, an unspoken battle between old taste and raw vision. The judges huddled, whispers, raised brows. A final nod. The host returned to the mic, envelope in hand, and the winner of tonight's Technical Innovation Award, entry number 7. Emma blinked. Someone clapped, then another, and another, but before the applause could grow, her body swayed, her hands slipped. The trophy hit the floor with a metallic clang. Emma collapsed. The crowd gasped. She didn't move. Raphael was the first to reach her. He cradled her in his arms, felt her cold skin, her hollow cheeks. Emma, he whispered. She mumbled, barely audible. Tuesday. Raphael did the math. It was Friday. You haven't eaten in 3 days. She nodded, eyes fluttering. The audience stared in stunned silence. Someone call an ambulance, Raphael shouted. Then came another voice. Urgent. Surprised. A photographer held a photo next to Emma's face. Wait. I know her. That's ES. The crowd turned. The ES, the missing designer from Santos Couture. She vanished after the scandal. She was a genius. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a storm surge. And there, under the lights of New York's elite, a woman, once invisible, was finally being seen. As she lay unconscious in the arms of the man who believed in her, Emma Carter, once known as ES, became more than a mystery. She became a revolution. Chapter 2. The Legend Beneath the Dirt. Hospitals never sleep. The fluorescent lights hummed above cold linoleum floors, and the scent of antiseptic hung in the air like a memory no one wanted to keep. Raphael sat in the waiting room of Mount Sinai Hospital, untouched coffee growing cold in his hands. 2 hours had passed. 2 hours since the woman who turned trash into beauty collapsed in his arms. 2 hours since the entire fashion world gasped, not just because she fainted, but because someone had whispered a name none of them expected to hear again. Issy, the ghost of a genius they thought was dead. A nurse finally approached. Soft smile. Kind eyes. She's awake. Stable. Just malnourished and exhausted. You can go in. He stood, every nerve alive, but his steps careful, like if he moved too quickly, she might vanish again. The room was small, quiet. Emma sat up in the hospital bed, staring out the window. The glow of Manhattan lit her face with a soft silver hue. She didn't look at him when he entered. How are you feeling? He asked gently. Better, she said. Voice steady. Thank you for bringing me here. Anyone would have. No, she cut in. Most people walk past women like me when we collapse. You didn't? Silence stretched between them, thick with all the questions he hadn't dared to ask. He pulled a chair beside the bed. That photographer. He said you were ES, the designer who vanished 3 years ago. She didn't flinch, just closed her eyes, exhaled slowly. Do you believe him? I don't know what to believe, Raphael admitted. But I know someone sewing dresses out of trash on the street doesn't create like that unless they've done this before, unless it's in their blood. Emma gave a soft, bitter laugh. You called it flawless. That dress made of plastic. Imagine what I could do with real fabric. The sentence trailed off like it hurt to finish. He leaned in, So, it's true. She looked down at her hands, calloused, blistered, fingers cracked with cold. Yes, I was Emma Santos. What happened? He asked, voice careful. The air thickened. Emma's throat tightened. For a moment, it looked like she'd pull back, like the memory was too much. But then she spoke. 3 years ago, I was at the top. Santos Couture had 3 studios, 50 employees. Vogue called me the most promising designer in a generation. I was married to James Mitchell, a man who said he loved me, and my best friend, Veronica Blackwell, was my business partner. We were going to take on the world. Her eyes drifted to the skyline. I trusted her with everything: contracts, finances, legal work. I just wanted to create. I signed papers without reading, believing she'd protect me. But she forged documents, opened accounts in my name, moved money. When an audit came, she handed them everything: emails, forged signatures. It all pointed to me. She framed you. Emma nodded slowly, tears rising, but not falling. And James, my husband, he left the day after I was accused, said I was toxic. I found out later he and Veronica had been sleeping together for months. Raphael's jaw clenched, fists tightening in his lap. I lost everything: clients, my apartment, even my name. Veronica renamed the brand. Blackwell Empire. She kept the clients, the investors, everything. Lawyers drained my savings. I was labeled a criminal. No one would hire me, not even as a cashier. Eventually, I couldn't pay rent. I lived in my car. Then, not even that. She wiped her face quickly, ashamed of the tears. I've slept under bridges, in stairwells. I've sewn, with broken needles and thread pulled from old clothes. But I never stopped making. I couldn't. It's all I had. Raphael was quiet for a long time. Then he moved from his chair and knelt beside her bed, eyes level with hers. Emma, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything you've been through. She looked at him, confused, vulnerable. You don't even know me. I know enough. He said softly, I know what kind of strength it takes to survive like that, to still create beauty when the world sees you as broken. She looked away. But if I stay, I'll destroy your company. Veronica won't stop. You'll be next. He took her hand, firm but gentle, then let her come. We'll fight her together. I'll help you rebuild. We'll clear your name. Before either could say more, a knock came at the door. A nurse peeked in. Mr. Whitmore, someone's here to speak with Miss Santos. Says it's urgent. They exchanged a look. Who is it? Raphael asked. A woman, Veronica Blackwell, and she brought lawyers. Emma's face went pale. She's here. Raphael stood, jaw set like stone. You're not alone anymore. Chapter 3. From Trash to Tower. Emma Carter stood in front of the towering glass doors of Montgomery Fashion, a single suitcase in her hand, a second-hand blouse hanging awkwardly off her shoulders, her entire life tucked into a canvas bag and the corners of her memory. She took a breath. This wasn't just a building. It was the world she used to belong to, and the one that spat her out. The marble lobby inside gleamed like a cathedral of money. Executives passed like ghosts, speaking in million-dollar phrases. She stepped in. A blonde woman at the reception desk looked up sharply. The nameplate reading, Priscilla Monroe, executive assistant. May I help you? Priscilla asked, her voice soaked in disdain. I'm Emma Carter. I'm starting in the design department. Mr. Whitmore is expecting me. Priscilla blinked, then scanned her from head to toe. The faded jeans, the worn-out bag, the thrift store shoes. You must be mistaken. Mr. Whitmore doesn't hire people like you. Emma met her gaze, calm, unflinching. People like me, she repeated, voice low but sharp. You mean the kind who sew dresses from trash and still win awards? The air shifted. At that moment, the elevator pinged and Raphael stepped out. "Emma," he said with a warm smile. "Great to see you." He turned to Priscilla. "This is our new head designer. Please get her a full access badge." Priscilla's jaw visibly clenched, but her tone turned sugary in an instant. "Of course, Mr. Whitmore," right away. As they walked toward the elevators, whispers trailed behind them. "That's her, the homeless woman from the gallery. She sews with trash. Think she's working for free." Raphael leaned close. "Ignore them. Give it a few days. They'll be asking for your techniques." The elevator doors opened on the 35th floor, revealing a massive design studio light pouring in through tall windows, sleek workstations, mannequins lining the walls. It looked nothing like the park bench Emma had used as a cutting table. "This is your space," Raphael said. "Whatever you need, it's yours." Emma took it all in rows of cutting shears, bolts of imported fabric, digital sketching tablets, pattern printers, and suddenly she felt out of place. "Where are the restrooms?" she asked, unsure. "End of the hallway to the left," Raphael said. "Need help finding them?" "No, I just need a moment." Emma wandered. Hallways stretched endlessly, clean and sterile. She passed glass-walled conference rooms where designers clicked on tablets like it was second nature. By the time she returned, 15 minutes had passed and a small crowd had gathered around her workstation. 3 women, 2 men, all beautifully dressed. Cold eyes, Raphael stepped forward. "Everyone, this is Emma Carter, our new head designer." A woman with sharp cheekbones and red hair stepped forward. "Helena Davidson, creative director." Her tone made creative director sound more like queen of the realm. Then a man with a perfect beard crossed his arms. "Marcus Thompson, senior designer. I'm curious to see how your alternative methods match our quality standards." Emma smiled. "Cool and quiet. Nice to meet you." Raphael turned to her again. "I'll let you all get acquainted. Emma, let me know if you need anything." The moment he walked away, the room dropped 10 degrees colder. Helena stepped closer, her smile polished, but razor-edged. "So, Emma, where did you study?" "Parsons. I studied on the streets." Marcus gave a small chuckle. "Charming. And your clients?" Helena pressed. "Anyone who needed a dress to forget they had nothing." Emma answered softly. Helena's lip twitched. "Well, here we work with imported silks, Swarovski, and Italian leather. We don't exactly have garbage bins to dig through." Emma glanced around and noticed something. Trash bins overflowing with fabric scraps, rejected sketches, leftover zippers, waste. So much waste. She walked over, reached in, and pulled out a few pieces blue silk, French lace, and a metallic thread sample. "Actually," she said, "you throw away more than most people ever get to touch." She held up the silk. "Can I use this?" "That's trash," Marcus said flatly. "Perfect," Emma said with a smile. She sat down, rolled up her sleeves, and began. For the next 4 hours, the room grew quiet. At first, they whispered, made jokes, laughed behind her back. But then they stopped laughing. Emma moved like someone possessed. Each piece was sorted by texture and tone. Her stitches were tight, silent. She didn't use a machine, just a needle, thread, and hands that knew how to survive. The scraps became a dress, asymmetrical, sculptural, graceful. It shimmered, shifted colors in the light, looked like it had been designed that way from the beginning on purpose. "What kind of stitch is that?" one of the junior designers finally asked, awestruck. "Modified French, reinforced. Learned it sewing through cardboard in winter." Marcus stepped closer, stunned. "I've never seen anything like it." Helena said nothing, but her silence said everything. Just then, Raphael walked back into the studio. He stopped cold. The dress was still on the table, but even from the doorway, it glowed. Emma, he whispered. This is extraordinary. Just a test, she said softly. A test, Emma. You did more in one day than this department has in a month. Helena tried to recover. It's just experimental. No, Helena, it's revolutionary. Emma's cheeks flushed. Now, Raphael said gently, let me show you the computer system. He walked her over to a high-end digital tablet. She looked at it like it belonged on another planet. I don't know much about computers, she admitted. Don't worry, Raphael said, standing behind her. It's easier than it looks. He placed his hands gently over hers on the tablet. The closeness startled her. His breath was near, warm, steady. Click here to open the design software. His voice was low, calming. She tried to focus. But the scent of his cologne and the softness of his hands made her heart do something it hadn't done in years, flutter. He leaned closer, their faces just inches apart. Their eyes met. The air shifted again. Emma's lips parted, just slightly. A soft cough broke the moment. Helena stood nearby, expression unreadable. Raphael, the board is looking for you. He straightened, stepping back. Of course. Emma, if you need anything, Helena can assist you. Certainly. Helena replied with a smile that never reached her eyes. After he left, Emma sat at her station alone. The whispers started again, but this time, they weren't laughing. She looked out the window. The skyline shimmered. From the 35th floor, the city looked beautiful, but more than that, it looked possible. For the first time in 3 years, Emma Carter felt like she might be home again. Chapter 4. The Enemy Reawakens. The rooftop terrace of a luxury penthouse gleamed under the city lights. French champagne bubbled in a crystal flute as Veronica Blackwell watched the news segment with painted-on boredom until a name caught her ear. A young designer named Emma Carter stunned guests at the Montgomery fashion exhibit last night with a dress made entirely of recycled materials. Rumors swirl that she may, in fact, be the long-missing fashion icon. E.S. The glass slipped from Veronica's fingers and shattered on the marble floor. She stared at the screen. The face, the eyes, the unmistakable precision in her hands as she held the trophy before collapsing. It was her, Emma Santos, back from the dead. 10 minutes later, Veronica was on the phone. Marcus, she purred. I need an urgent article. Yes, about Emma Santos. She's not just back. She's about to ruin everything we've built. She hung up and dialed again, this time. Her lawyer. I want every contact in the press looped in. Say she's mentally unstable. Say she's using a fake name. Say whatever you need to. This woman must disappear again. Veronica walked to her office, heels clicking like gunshots, rage burning beneath her designer dress. She had stolen everything from Emma once. She would do it again. Within 48 hours, the headlines spread like wildfire. Fugitive designer, hiding in plain sight, ES or a fraud. The truth about the woman who fooled the elite. Sources. Say Emma Santos suffers from delusional disorder at Montgomery Tower. Phones rang nonstop. Orders were canceled. Clients pulled out. Whispers grew louder. Raphael stood in his office, eyes on the screen, jaw tight with fury. Priscilla stepped in, pale and nervous. Mr. Whitmore, the board wants a meeting. They're concerned. Where's Emma? Still on the 35th floor. He left immediately. Emma sat at her workstation, head down, needle, moving through fabric as if it were her only lifeline. The whispers around her had turned venomous. She's not even who she says she is. I heard she laundered millions. How long before she robs the company? Raphael entered the room with urgency. Emma, I need to speak with you. Now, she followed him in silence to his private office. Once inside, he closed the door and placed a tablet on the desk. I need the truth. All of it. Right now. Emma looked at the screen. The headlines, the rumors, the photos. Her hands began to shake. I knew this day would come. She said softly, "Yes, I'm Emma Santos." And the accusations, she sank into the chair across from him. "Do you really want the truth?" she asked. "Because once I tell you, there's no turning back. I need to know." Emma stood and walked to the window, her reflection a ghost against the glass. 3 years ago, I was at the top of the fashion world. Santos Couture was worth $50 million. I was 25. Married, trusted, celebrated. And then Veronica, my best friend, my partner. She handled the finances. I didn't think twice. I signed what she gave me. Turns out, I signed away my life. Her voice trembled, but didn't break. She opened fake accounts in my name, moved money, and when the audit came, she blamed me, had documents, emails. She planted files on my laptop. When the police showed up, they didn't even question it. James, my husband, left me 2 days later, said I was toxic. I later found out he and Veronica had been having an affair for months. Raphael felt something twist in his chest. The media crucified me. I lost everything in 2 weeks. The studio, my home, my name, and eventually, my sanity. I wandered, tried to rebuild in other cities, but the scandal followed me. The name Emma Santos became a warning sign. No one would touch me, not even to work retail. So I stopped trying. I started sewing on sidewalks, not because I wanted to be seen, but because I needed to remember I still existed. Tears fell now, but she didn't hide them. "You believed in me," she whispered. "And now, because of me, you're in danger." "Emma," Raphael said gently, walking to her, "you're not the danger. Veronica is afraid because she knows the truth." "But I'll lose you," Emma said, her voice breaking. "No," he said, lifting her chin. "You already lost everything once. This time, you're not alone." Just then, a knock. Priscilla again. "Mr. Whitmore." "She's here?" "Veronica Blackwell, with lawyers." Emma's spine straightened. Her eyes went cold. "Then let's face her." The lobby of Montgomery Tower was a frozen battlefield. Veronica stood like she owned it, blonde, flawless, dressed in power. When she saw Emma, she smiled like a cobra. "Emma, darling," she cooed, still dressing in garbage. "I see." Emma said nothing. Raphael stepped forward. "Miss Blackwell, this is a private business. You can schedule a meeting like anyone else." Veronica laughed. So charming. She has a protector now. She turned to Emma. "You really think you can hide behind a new name? Emma Carter. So clever. But we all know who you are, a runaway fraud. A stain." Emma's jaw clenched. "I'm not hiding," she said. "And I'm not a criminal. But you know exactly what you did." Veronica's eyes narrowed. "Careful, dear. Slander is a dangerous game." Raphael stepped forward, his voice calm but sharp. "That's enough. Leave. Now." Security escorted Veronica out, but not before she looked back and hissed, "This isn't over. Emma, you have no idea what I'm capable of." As the elevator closed behind her, Emma collapsed into a chair. "She's right," she whispered. "I'll destroy your company." Raphael knelt beside her. "The only thing being destroyed is the lie she built. And this time, we'll burn it to the ground." Chapter 5. A Dress Reborn. The studio smelled of lavender tea and warm fabric. It was just after midnight when Emma finally looked up from her sewing table. Her hands were raw from stitching, but she barely noticed. The pieces on the mannequins around her looked like ghosts, unfinished, fragile, but full of fight. Tomorrow was everything. New York Fashion Week. It was her first official collection since her fall. Her return to the runway, 5 pieces, each telling a story. Fall, awakening, fight, rebirth, love. She was rebuilding not just a career, but a life. Raphael had gone home hours ago, but not before leaving her a note. "You're the bravest artist I've ever known. No matter what happens tomorrow, you've already won. I.R." Emma smiled at the note, tracing her finger over the R like it was the beginning of something more. Then she turned off the light and left. She arrived the next morning, humming, with coffee in hand and hope in her chest. And then she saw it. The studio door slightly ajar. Inside, shreds everywhere. Her dresses torn to ribbons, lace ripped, plastic scorched, beading scattered across the floor like broken promises. Emma dropped her coffee. No, she whispered. Falling to her knees, she picked up a piece of the rebirth dress, now nothing more than threads and ash. Her breath came in short, panicked gasps. In 3 years on the streets, Emma had never cried. Not when she was cold, not when she was hungry, not when people stepped over her like she didn't exist. But now the tears came in waves, silent and shattering. This wasn't just sabotage. This was personal. This was Veronica. And this time, Emma didn't know if she had the strength to start again. Raphael arrived an hour later. He found her sitting on the floor, cradling the remains of a dress in her arms like it was a child. "My God," he whispered, kneeling beside her. "What happened?" Emma couldn't even lift her head. "She destroyed everything," she croaked. "Veronica, she got in. I don't know how, but she destroyed everything." Raphael clenched his jaw. His voice was low, controlled, dangerous. "Then we rebuild. The show is in 40 hours. Raphael, you don't rebuild a whole collection in 40 hours. "Yes," he said firmly. "You do. If you have help." He picked up his phone and made a call. "Cancel all meetings. Bring everyone in, designers, assistants, interns. I don't care what time it is. Emergency creative session. Now, by noon." The entire design department filled the studio. Even cleaning staff came, wearing aprons, rolling carts of scraps. Helena stood at the center, arms crossed, skeptical as ever. "What exactly do we need?" she asked. Emma looked up, eyes still swollen from crying. "Trash," she said quietly. Marcus raised a brow. "You want us to dig through the city for garbage?" Emma stood, voice suddenly clear. "I want plastic, fabric scraps, broken zippers, old newspapers, anything that doesn't look like fashion, because that's where it begins." There was a beat of silence. Then Helena, unexpectedly, nodded. "Well, let's go dumpster diving." For the next 36 hours, the city of New York became a fashion supply house. Designers in silk blouses climbed through recycling bins. Assistants bartered with fabric shops for discarded samples. Raphael himself drove through Harlem at 3 a.m., collecting bags of plastic from a donation center. Back at Montgomery, Emma sewed like a woman possessed. She didn't sleep, barely ate, barely spoke, but her hands moved with precision, fueled by adrenaline and grief and fire. One dress became 2, then 3, then 5. Each one was more than fabric. It was resistance. A blue plastic gown that floated like water. A coat made of varnished newspapers, polished to shine like leather. An evening gown of clear bottles, cut into crystal petals. And finally, a wedding dress made entirely from materials she once slept beneath. Trash bags, paper butterflies, bottle cap roses. It wasn't just a collection. It was her story. The night of the show, Lincoln Center was electric. Celebrities, critics, investors, every seat taken. Veronica sat in the front row, calm and smug in a dress worth more than Emma's entire wardrobe. She sipped champagne and whispered, "She won't show, and if she does, it'll be a disaster." Then the lights dimmed, and the music started. The first model stepped out. Gasps echoed through the audience. The blue plastic gown shimmered under the lights, moving like liquid silk. The crowd leaned forward. Then came the newspaper coat, then the crystal bottle gown, then the mosaic made from scraps, each piece louder than the last, then silence. And finally, the last model appeared, wearing the wedding dress Emma had made with trembling hands and 3 hours of sleep. It glowed, it whispered, it roared. The crowd stood 5, 10 seconds, then longer. Then the applause erupted, a standing ovation. 5 minutes long, cameras flashing, critics in tears, a fashion revolution. One whispered, the future of sustainability. Another said, Veronica's champagne glass cracked in her grip. Backstage, Emma stood behind the curtain, breathless, exhausted, shaking. Raphael found her there. You did it. He said, we did it. She corrected. He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. Would you have dinner with me tonight? Emma paused, then smiled. I'd love to. That night, they sat in a tiny Italian restaurant, far from the runways and lights. They didn't talk about fashion. They talked about life, grief, hope, about how sometimes, to find yourself again, you have to first be broken completely. As they walked back to her apartment, the air warm and soft, Raphael stopped outside her door. Emma, Raphael. Their eyes met, their hands touched. They leaned in, and for one long, slow moment, they kissed. Not for the cameras, not for the industry, just for them. Chapter 6. The whispered past. The morning sun spilled into the small apartment like golden silk. Emma sat at her modest kitchen table, sipping lukewarm coffee from a chipped mug. The scent of success from last night's show still lingered on her skin. But inside, there was something else. A quiet ache, a shadow of memory pressing against her chest. She picked up her phone, intending to scroll past the noise. But the first notification made her breath catch. Breaking. Mystery designer Emma Carter, rumored to be disgraced fashion icon ES. The rumors weren't just online now. They were everywhere. Emma's hands trembled as she turned off the phone and stared out the window. Later that morning, she arrived at Montgomery Tower. She tried to hold her head high, but the whispers had returned. That's her. The con artist. I heard she was in a mental hospital. She kept walking. On the 35th floor, she found Raphael in his office, standing by the window, his expression unreadable. You saw the news, she asked softly. He nodded, then turned to face her. Something gentle lived in his eyes. But there was tension too. Emma, I need to know everything. Not as your boss, not even as whatever we are, but as someone who cares about you deeply. She looked down, took a long breath. Close the door, she said. She stood with her back to him. 5 years ago, I was returning home from the studio. It was late, cold. I saw a woman crossing the street, distracted by her phone. She didn't see the car speeding toward her. I didn't think. I just ran. I pushed her out of the way. Saved her life. She cried, thanked me. But I didn't stay. I didn't want recognition. I just wanted to go home. She turned to face him. That woman was your sister, wasn't she? Raphael's breath caught in his throat. Margaret, he whispered. I saw her at your office. I recognized her instantly. That's why you helped me, isn't it? Emma, please don't lie to me. Just tell me the truth. Raphael stepped forward slowly. I didn't know. Not until Margaret saw you and told me a few days ago. She never knew your name back then. Said an angel saved her life and disappeared. But the second she recognized you, she cried. And she told me, you have to protect her. That woman saved me. Emma's throat tightened. So, this is just some cosmic repayment. No, Raphael said, voice thick. This isn't about what you did for my sister. This is about what you did for me. You brought me back to life, Emma, watching you fight for your place. Create from nothing. Love, without asking for anything in return. You didn't save just her. You saved me. Emma's lips parted, but no sound came. I didn't fall in love with you because you saved Margaret, he whispered. I fell in love with the woman who sat in a public square and made garbage look like couture. The woman who looked me in the eye with dirt on her cheeks and said, "Do you see it too?" Yes, he said, stepping closer. I see it. I see you. Emma's walls finally broke. She fell into his arms, burying her face in his chest. And for the first time since the scandal, she let herself believe that maybe she could be loved again, not despite her past, but with it. Outside, the city kept moving. But in that office, everything stilled, and in the quiet, truth became a thread between them. No longer a secret, but something softer, something stronger, something whispered, but never lost. Chapter 7. Sabotage at Dawn. It was nearly 2:08. The Montgomery Tower studio was silent, machines off, lights dimmed, fabric bolts rolled up like sleeping bodies. Only one soul stirred in the darkness. Veronica Blackwell, dressed in all black, with a pair of steel shears tucked inside her luxury handbag. She moved like a shadow through the hallway. 2 bribed security guards had already been paid and sent away. No cameras, no questions. She stepped into the studio. The air smelled of glue, starch, and quiet victory. Emma's new collection was lined on mannequins under soft lighting, a delicate arc of color and hope. Each piece was a wound stitched into beauty, each thread a testimony, each fold a risk, and Veronica was about to tear it all apart. Let's see what your trash looks like when it's ripped to pieces, she whispered. One by one, she slashed, the awakening dress gone, the fight ripped from the hem up to the neckline, the rebirth shredded into fluttering confetti of despair. Then she reached the final piece, the wedding dress, made from layered plastic, newspaper petals, and hand-embroidered lace made from discarded thread. Veronica didn't hesitate. She sliced clean through the bodice, unraveling Emma's masterpiece in a single sweep. By sunrise, the studio was a battlefield. Emma entered with coffee in one hand and a hopeful smile on her face. She was humming. It was the first time she'd truly smiled since the Runway show. Then she saw it, and the world cracked. No, she dropped the coffee. The cup hit the tile with a dull splash, spraying brown across her worn sneakers. Emma stepped forward in a trance. Her fingers touched the ruined lace like it might come back to life if she held it softly enough. But it didn't. She collapsed to her knees. Her breath came ragged, shaking. Not again, she whispered. Please, not again. She pressed the shredded silk against her chest, trying to hold the pieces together like she could sew the world back up with her bare hands. This wasn't sabotage. This was war. An hour later, Raphael found her sitting on the floor, her back against the wall, fabric scraps in her lap, her eyes vacant. Emma, he said gently. She didn't speak, just lifted one shredded sleeve toward him. She destroyed everything. Raphael scanned the room and felt a rage rise in his chest that nearly choked him. Veronica, she got in. She cut them all. Emma's voice was distant, almost childlike. I have nothing left to show. The exhibit is in less than 2 days. Raphael knelt beside her. Then we rebuild. There's no time. Yes, there is. With what? Raphael, I don't even have thread. He looked into her eyes, exhausted, fragile, but still glowing with that impossible, stubborn light. Then we make thread from dust if we have to. He stood and pulled out his phone. I need every employee in the building. Designers, interns, assistants, cleaning crew, everyone. Studio train to fine. Emergency rebuild. Cancel all leave. He hung up and turned to Emma. I need you to stand up. One more time. She didn't move, so he reached out his hand. You taught the world how to turn trash into treasure. Now, let them see you turn broken into brilliance. Emma looked at his hand, then his eyes, and then she stood. Within an hour, the studio was packed. Designers brought scissors, interns brought coffee, cleaning staff brought plastic, bags, bits of broken jewelry, paper, scrap lace, soda cans, discarded fabric. Helena walked in last, arms crossed. What do you need from us? She asked. Emma took a deep breath. Everything. And that's what they gave her. That night and the next, they didn't sleep. Emma stitched like a woman possessed. She created a second collection from the ruins of the first. This time, it was even better. The fall, made from layers of dark plastics and torn ribbon. Jagged and raw, the spark. A dress laced with LED lights stitched into the lining, glowing with each movement. The mosaic, built from scraps, bits of broken mirror, and glass bead embroidery from a disassembled chandelier. The phoenix, a jacket that changed color under heat. And the final piece, the promise. The promise was a wedding dress built from Emma's deepest wounds. It had paper butterflies fluttering from the hem, each one hand-folded by the studio team. The train was long, layered in translucent plastics that moved like breath. The dress shimmered, not because it was expensive, but because it was true. As the sun rose over Manhattan the morning of the exhibit, Emma stepped back from the last mannequin and exhaled. She had no tears left, only light. We did it, she whispered to Raphael. You did it, he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. This time, let them try to look away. And in her eyes, there was no fear, only fire. Chapter 8. Nay, the truth unraveled. The lights at Lincoln Center dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd. Thousands of eyes leaning forward, hearts holding their breath. The first model stepped onto the runway, wearing the fall, a gown made of sharp silhouettes and shadowy tones, layered in torn ribbons and jagged plastics. It was pain, grief, and survival stitched into movement. Gasps filled the room. Emma stood backstage, hand in Raphael's. You did this, he whispered. No, she whispered back, eyes shining. We did one by one. The models walked, the spark, the mosaic, the phoenix, and finally, the promise, a wedding dress made of waste and wonder, carried down the runway by none other than Margaret Whitmore. Radiant in quiet defiance, paper butterflies trailed behind her like echoes of every version of Emma that had once been broken. And when Emma stepped out to join her modest, steady, eyes brimming with tears, the audience rose as one. 10 minutes of uninterrupted applause. Even Anna Wintour stood. But backstage, something even more unexpected was happening. A man in a gray suit moved through the crowd with purpose. He carried a leather briefcase and eyes that had seen too much. He approached Raphael just as the crowd began to disperse. Mr. Whitmore. Yes, Detective Nolan. Private investigations. You hired me 2 weeks ago. Raphael's chest tightened. You found something. I found everything. The next morning, Emma was still wearing her studio hoodie, hair in a messy braid, when Raphael walked into her apartment with a thick folder in his hands. Good morning, he said softly. That depends, she replied, eyeing the folder. Is that what I think it is? He handed it to her. Emma opened it slowly. The pages were filled with forged contracts, bank account numbers, email exchanges, all signed in her name, all traced to Veronica Blackwell. Her hands trembled. This is everything, she whispered. The missing evidence. The detective tracked a former accountant from your company. He kept backups of everything, afraid he'd be blamed too. Emma sat down hard on the couch, her breath shaky. This clears me. It does more than that, Raphael said gently. It convicts her. She stared at the pages like they were some sacred scroll. 3 years ago, she'd begged for this truth, prayed for it in alleys, in shelters, with hands blistered from cold and shame. Now it was here, but instead of celebration, she felt stillness. Why am I not crying? She whispered. Raphael sat beside her. Because part of you already let go of the past. Now the world just gets to catch up. Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. What happens next? I give this to the authorities. The DA's office is ready. Veronica's about to be exposed for what she really is. Emma's lips quivered. She'll fight it. She'll spin it. She'll blame me. Let her. This time, the truth is louder. By noon, the news exploded. Veronica Blackwell, accused of fraud and forgery in ES scandal. Exclusive. Evidence proves. Designer Emma Santos was framed. DA confirms charges pending against Blackwell Empire CEO. Veronica's empire trembled. She released a public statement claiming innocence, but it was too late. Fashion houses pulled their support. Her legal team jumped ship. Models canceled appearances. And across the city, in every coffee shop and subway car, people whispered her name, not with admiration, but with disbelief. Meanwhile, at Montgomery Tower, a different kind of storm brewed. The boardroom was stiff with tension. 12 members sat in cold silence as Raphael entered, a copy of the folder in his hand. You wanted the truth, he said, placing the evidence on the table. There it is. The board president, Theodore Montgomery III, picked up the file and scanned the first few pages. His jaw clenched. Even if this clears her legally, he said, her reputation is still a liability. Montgomery fashion serves the elite. Scandal isn't on brand. Raphael didn't flinch. You're right. Which is why I resign. A stunned silence fell over the room, effective immediately. He added, laying down his badge and board access. You're throwing away your legacy for a woman who used to sleep in bus stations. Theodore hissed. No. Raphael said, I'm choosing integrity and love, and maybe finally doing something human. He turned to leave. Oh, and one more thing, he said at the door. When she was homeless, Emma still created more beauty than this building has seen in a decade. And with that, he was gone. That evening, Raphael found Emma teaching sewing to a group of young girls at a shelter in Brooklyn. He waited until the class ended, then stepped into the hallway where she stood wiping her hands on a rag. Hey, he said softly. Hey, she replied, surprised. Did you do it? I did, and I quit. You quit everything. He nodded. Because I realized something, he said, stepping closer. No runway, no office, no boardroom will ever compare to seeing you here. Showing girls with nothing how to build everything. Emma swallowed. But what now? What happens next? He smiled. We build our own world, a new brand, one with purpose, one that tells the truth. She stepped into him, forehead resting against his. You left everything behind. I didn't leave anything behind, he whispered. I finally walked toward the right thing. Chapter 9. Runway of Reckoning. The invitation arrived on recycled paper, embossed in gold. New York Fashion Week. Final showdown. Eolux versus Blackwell Empire. 2 brands, 1 runway, 1 future. Emma stared at it for a long time. She wasn't nervous. She was ready. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth, justice, and walking back into the world that once swallowed her whole. Wearing armor, made of everything it tried to destroy. For 6 weeks, she and Raphael barely slept. They rented a small studio in Brooklyn. It had peeling walls and only one working light, but it was theirs. The name of their new brand was hand-painted across the door. Eolux. a name born from Eos, goddess of dawn, and Lux, the Latin word for light. It meant light after darkness. Their collection would be called From Trash to Dreams. 15 looks, 15 stories, 15 wounds turned into wings. They stitched through rainstorms and silence, through cheap meals and long hugs, through exhaustion and small laughter and quiet midnight dancing. And slowly, the dresses came alive. Not just beautiful, revolutionary, each made of waste and memory bottle caps, newspaper lace, broken mirror pieces, melted plastics formed into liquid textures. Each one had a heart stitched inside it. The night of the show, Lincoln Center had never seen so many flashing lights. 2 runways, 1 audience. Half came to witness Veronica's dominance. The other half came to see if the rumors were true, if the homeless designer who rose from the streets could truly go head-to-head with fashion's most brutal queen. Veronica arrived wearing a diamond-studded cloak that sparkled like vengeance. She smiled at cameras like a snake posing in fur. Emma wore a black jumpsuit made from thrifted fabric and confidence. No makeup, no bodyguards, just purpose. Raphael walked beside her, nervous. He asked. She smiled faintly. Only that people won't feel what I'm trying to say. He took her hand. They'll feel it. Because it's real. Veronica's show began first. Gold, flash, excess. Models walked like soldiers in towering heels, draped in gowns so heavy they could barely move. The crowd clapped out of habit, out of intimidation. The final look was a $5 million crystal-encrusted corset dress that required 2 people to help the model walk. It sparkled, but it didn't speak. Then the lights on the second runway dimmed. The spotlight rose, and Emma walked out. Not a model. Emma, alone, steady, barefoot, wearing a dress made from recycled newspaper, hand-stitched, with names of the women she'd taught in shelters. She walked to the microphone and said, simply, "This collection is for the forgotten." The music began a haunting blend of strings and silence. The first model appeared wearing The Fall, a sculptural piece layered in torn fabrics and broken glass, symbolizing rock bottom. Then came The Spark, lit with embedded LEDs that pulsed softly like a heartbeat. The Fight, made from stitched-together denim, paper, old scarves clashing but unified. The Awakening, a color-shifting gown that changed as the model moved identity in motion. And then, the Rebirth, a rainbow explosion of plastic, lace, embroidery, recycled chains, and butterfly wings. The crowd leaned forward. Some were crying. Some had stopped filming, just watching. And finally, True Love, a wedding gown crafted from the same blue trash bags Emma had once slept under in the park, now transformed with mother-of-pearl bottle caps, translucent layering, and a veil stitched with her own name in thread. Emma Santos Whitmore, the model wearing it, Margaret Whitmore. As she reached the end of the runway, Margaret whispered into the mic, "She saved my life once. Now she's saving all of us." The room erupted, standing ovation. 10 full minutes, even the harshest critics wiped away tears. Backstage, Emma stood frozen, hands over her face. Raphael came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and whispered, "You've changed the industry." "And me? I just wanted to be seen," she whispered back, "not for what I lost, but for what I never gave up." But the show wasn't over yet. As the crowd calmed, 2 FBI agents stepped onto the Blackwell Empire runway. "Veronica Blackwell," one said, flashing a badge. "You're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and obstruction of justice." The entire room turned. Veronica froze. "What? You can't. This is a fashion show." But they handcuffed her anyway. The cameras kept rolling. One of the agents looked toward Emma. and gave her a small nod. Your team's evidence was solid, he whispered as he passed. Thank you. Veronica's screams echoed as she was led out, and just like that, the ghost of Emma's past was finally gone. That night, Emma and Raphael walked home. No limo, no cameras, just the two of them, holding hands in the quiet of midnight Manhattan. They stopped at the same square where she used to sew with plastic and wire. She knelt and placed a single rose where she once sat, hungry and forgotten. You ready for our real future? Raphael asked. She looked up at him. You mean the one we build from scratch? He smiled. Exactly. From scratch. From truth. From us. She stood, and under the glow of city lights, they kissed like people who had nothing left to lose and everything finally to live for. Chapter 10. A brand new dawn. 2 years later, the sun rose slowly over Central Park, painting the sky in hues of soft coral and gold. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves overhead as wildflowers lined the aisle. There were no velvet ropes, no gilded chandeliers, no celebrity guest list, just community. Women from shelters sat next to fashion investors. Children who once learned to sew on Emma's studio floor now wore handmade suits and dresses. It wasn't a wedding built for prestige. It was built for memory, for meaning. And at the center of it all stood Emma Santos Whitmore, barefoot in a gown made entirely of donated fabric scraps sent from followers across the world, silks from Brazil, beads from Kenya, cotton from Detroit, each piece stitched by hand, each thread carrying a story. She held her belly 6 months pregnant and smiled as the music began to play. From the far end of the grassy aisle, Raphael walked toward her, tears in his eyes. He wore a linen suit, no tie, no mask, just love. When he reached her, he leaned close. You look like a sunrise. Emma laughed through her tears. That's fitting. We named our company after one. They exchanged vows beneath a canopy made from repurposed veils and recycled pearls. Emma's voice trembled as she spoke. I once thought love was for perfect people, for the ones who'd never been broken. I thought I was too far gone, too wounded, too discarded. She took a breath. But you reminded me that beauty isn't about never breaking. It's about what we build from the pieces. Raphael's voice cracked as he replied. You taught me that true wealth isn't power or money, it's meaning, it's impact, it's waking up next to someone who makes the world feel like it has color again. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. When they kissed, it wasn't dramatic or choreographed. It was quiet, gentle, grateful, the kind of kiss you give when you've already lost everything once and now know exactly what's worth holding on to. Back in Brooklyn, Eolux had become a global brand, not because it was trendy, not because it was backed by influencers or magazine spreads, but because it stood for something. Every piece sold funded programs in women's shelters. Every product was handcrafted by people who had once been told they were worth nothing. Emma still taught classes twice a week now, with a baby bump poking through her apron. Miss Emma, asked Carolina, now 17, do you miss being famous? Emma smiled. Fame fades. Purpose doesn't. The room nodded. Her students weren't just learning how to sew. They were learning how to rise. One evening, Emma sat on the studio floor, sorting donations, when Raphael entered holding a letter. What's that? She asked. He knelt beside her, eyes full of wonder. The United Nations just invited you to speak at their Sustainability Summit. They want you to headline. Emma blinked. Me, in front of world leaders. He laughed. Yes, you, the woman who once made a wedding dress out of trash bags and changed the way the world thinks about beauty. She looked down at her hands, still rough, still real. All I ever wanted was to matter, she whispered. Raphael leaned in. You matter more than you know. That night, as the city lights blinked softly outside their window, Emma sat beside Raphael in their tiny kitchen, her head resting on his shoulder. Their baby kicked gently. Their hands found each other's. No crowns, no cameras, just two people who had chosen love, purpose, and each other over everything else. And in that quiet moment, Emma whispered, "The girl who once stitched a dress out of trash, she's gone now." Raphael looked at her, puzzled. Emma smiled, eyes shining. She became something else, a woman who learned that even the broken can bloom. They say some people are born to shine, but Emma Santos wasn't born into light. She had to make her own, from scraps, from silence, from things the world threw away. Her story didn't begin with a spotlight. It began on the cold pavement of a park bench, sewing with a bent wire and plastic bags, not for fame, but for sanity, for something to hold on to when everything else had been taken. And somehow, in the mess, in the dirt, she was seen, not pitied, not rescued, seen by a man who wore expensive suits but hadn't felt anything real in years, by a little girl who said, "Miss Emma, you make the trash look like treasure," by strangers online who saw her videos and whispered, "If she can rise, maybe I can too." Emma didn't fight to be the best. She fought to be herself again. Not the designer who once sold million-dollar gowns, but the woman who believed that dignity should never come with a price tag. She built a brand that reached every corner of the world, not because it promised perfection, but because it reminded people that beauty can come from broken places. And in the end, love found her, not as a prize, not as redemption, but as a quiet truth, a home inside someone else's eyes. So if you're still waiting for your second chance, if life has knocked you down, stripped you of your titles, made you question your worth, let this story whisper what Emma's life screamed. You are not what they threw away. You are what you choose to rebuild. And sometimes, the greatest masterpiece you'll ever create is you. If this story moved something inside you, there's another waiting for you, one that goes even deeper, where healing begins in the most unexpected place. Maybe it's not just a story. Maybe it's the beginning of your own. See you in the next one. What did you think of this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Rate it from 0 to 10. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a story. And stay tuned. More powerful stories are waiting for you right here.